The Justice Department suing to block HPE's $14 billion acquisition of Juniper Networks, alleging that it would harm competition. HPE and Juniper are responding to the filing, saying, quote, "We believe the Department of Justice's analysis of this acquisition is fundamentally flawed, and we are disappointed in its decision to file a suit attempting to prohibit the closing of the transaction." Now, this coming after HPE CEO Antonio Neri has repeatedly reiterated his confidence that this deal is going to get done to Yahoo Finance. Here's what he told us just last week in Davos.
We are working with now the new administration, and we feel confident that we will get this deal through.
All right, joining us now, we want to bring in Bill Baer. He's the former United States Assistant Attorney General. Bill, so Antonio, to no surprise, obviously has remained very, very confident that we are going to get this done. I think maybe this news yesterday came as a bit of a surprise given it's happening under the Trump administration. How do you see this playing out?
Well, this is pretty much mainstream antitrust merger enforcement. It is not something that's out of left field or left wing. It is two of the three major suppliers of these enterprise solutions combining. After the deal, you will have two firms, the combined Juniper, Hewlett Packard, and Cisco, controlling well over 70% of the U.S. market. Under antitrust law, that's presumptively unlawful and problematic. So it's an interesting first move by the antitrust division under President Trump. We'll see what it portends for the future.
Bill, it sounds like you don't think the deal's going to get done then, right? It's going to get blocked?
Reading the complaint, these two firms, Juniper's a relatively new firm to this market, but it's done very well. And the complaint lays out ways in which Hewlett Packard and Juniper are aggressively competing with each other today. That's lost. The companies say, they're going to save a whole lot of money, efficiencies from this deal, but it doesn't mean consumers and the businesses that buy from these two companies are going to do better. And that's really what antitrust is all about, separating what is beneficial to shareholders, but maybe bad for competition. So my bet, and I'm not a betting man, but my bet on this one is I think the courts are likely to be sympathetic to the government's challenger.
So, Bill, we mentioned that this is the first suit brought under the Trump administration. Then is it too quick, just given the arguments that you've laid out, too quick to then jump to the conclusion that maybe this signals the Trump administration is going to be a bit more aggressive than maybe initially expected?
I think it's too early to tell. It's just one tea leaf here, and we got to look at a whole bunch of them to see what the trend is going to be. But the point I made at the outset, I think, is worth thinking about. This is sort of mainstream merger enforcement. It's the kind of case that Republican administrations and Democratic administrations would have brought. So it's not novel. It's pretty much straight down the path.
Bill, I'm curious broadly what you make of what feels like has become consensus that mergers and acquisitions will be easier to sort of get to not get blocked, essentially, right, under President Trump. I mean, do you agree with that general consensus? I was looking at a story from our Alexis Keenan. She was pointing out that the DOJ and the FTC brought 118 M&A challenges between 2017 and 2019 under Trump, pretty similar to what you saw under Biden. It's not like they were letting everything go through.
I think that's right. There is more consensus than a lot of people in the business community might think about what constitutes antitrust harms, what M&A activity, particularly when rivals merge, should be challenged. And those figures you just cited tend to bear that out.
But what do you think investors, when they're trying to, and following up on what Josh was just asking there, how should then we be thinking about the regulatory framework going forward? Is the market then maybe a bit too optimistic just in terms of how much activity we could potentially then see over the next 4 years, or is it very much a sector by sector basis?
It's hard to figure out what the macro trend is going to be, and you don't know what M&A activity that had been on hold during the last 4 years might be tried now. That I assume the business community will legitimately test the limits and pursue some deals that probably would never have gotten out of the boardroom 2 or 3 years ago. So I expect more activity. It takes a while to figure out what is getting seriously investigated and what is being allowed to go through, but I'm not surprised to see companies rethinking their acquisition strategies and being more aggressive about them.
Bill Baer, we're going to have to leave it there. Appreciate you joining us today.
All right, appreciate it. Thanks, folks.